Transmitter device activated. Coordinates set for Earth 2.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Earth 2 podcast, your weekly exploration of the DC Comics multiverse and the legacy of their Golden Age characters throughout the Silver and Bronze Ages of comics. I'm Peter Watson.
And I'm David Steele. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. Delighted that we're still keeping to the plot, as it were. Listeners, this week we're reading a story. I think it's safe to say we've both been anticipating this one quite a lot.
For a very long time, yes.
Yep. A story from issue 2 of Super Team Family that was published on the 25th of September 1975, a couple of weeks after the third birthday of Matt Everett, drummer with Menswear and the Montrose Avenue. And Super Team Family was one of a number of books that were sort of relaunched by DC around about this period. They were digging deep into the archives, and we got Super Team Family, and we got the Batman family, and we got the revamped Superman family. This being issue 2. The best way to probably tell you about the contents is for Peter to tell us about the cover.
There's the usual cigar band at the top, we've got the DC logo, and at the other corner, 50 cents, number 2, January 31665 is the code number if you're interested. Super Team Family, it says in a small logo. Giant, it says in a giant logo. And we have headshots of 3 of the characters appearing in this issue. There is Batman, there is the Creeper, and there is Wildcat. Gasp. Batman, Deadman, the Creeper, and Wildcat in Super Team Family.
I'm going to pause you right there. Imagine it was a story with all 4 of them.
I'm imagining it right now.
Me too.
When we do our DC comic, we will write that story,
Yes.
and it will be epic. Yeah, because Deadman is also featuring in it, because this has got more than one story in it. The cover split into a couple of images. First image is Batman and Deadman in Die, Killer, Die, which is German for the killer, the. On the panel, representing that, we have Batman in a torn uniform. He's on the ground, he's looking very pained. Deadman appears to be coming out of his body, so he must have been possessing him. And there is a guy in a brown suit with a hook for a hand. Oh, it's the Hook.
Gosh.
Deadman's foe. And he looks like he's been having a go at Batman, to be honest, and possibly going in for the killing blow.
Yeah.
Well then.
Now this story, of course, listeners, I'm sure you all know, was reprinted from issue 79 of The Brave and the Bold, first published in June 1968, I believe. And many years ago, when I was working in Stateside Comics, a colleague who shall remain nameless, but regular listeners of the podcast who live in the Glasgow area might be able to guess who it is, was a bit late one day. So I was just in on my own, and to sort of thank me sort of by my silence, as it were, he offered me a choice between Brave and the Bold issue 79 and something else which I now can't remember, the actual comics. And as a Neil Adams fan, I took the B&B 79. That was how my silence was brought for him being super late and blah, blah, blah. So there we
Love
go.
it.
Listeners, if you can guess who that colleague is, write into earth2podcast@gmail.com and I'll contact you personally and tell you if you were correct.
Now, underneath that Batman
You nearly said Batman Deadpool.
Deadpool, you can imagine.
Imagine.
When we do our DC Marvel crossover.
Yes, starring Batman, Deadpool, the Creeper and Wildcat.
Up against the Hook and Cable.
Did Marvel have a character called the Hook?
Quite possibly. They'll have had something Hook. Yeah.
Here's the thing, actually, while I remember, and I'm distracting us, but it's all these Dr. Fates we've done recently. I've got bought a couple of reprints recently of some 70s and 80s Man-Thing stories, and of course Man-Thing came up against a guy called Captain Fate a couple of times.
That's right, yes.
Sort of sky pirate type guy. Anyway, we should have mentioned that in recent episodes, but anyway. So, yes.
Oh, well.
Back to the cover of Super Team Family issue 2.
Yes, so underneath this image of the aforementioned characters, we have the Creeper and Wildcat. Because, of course, Super Team Family was a combination at this time of new stories and reprint stories. And the image for this is Wildcat on his Catocycle, eye headlights beaming out. He appears to be in some sort of beach. He's coming out. There's some buildings in the background.
Yeah.
And he's being jumped. He's being attacked by none other than the Creeper. Gasp.
Gosh.
And at the very bottom, there's a small picture of Green Arrow, and it says, Extra, Green Arrow and Speedy, plus a mysterious guest star.
Yes, that's a brilliant story, the case of the Vanishing Arrows. We might find time to try and do that at some point in the show, maybe. Fascinating fact, listeners. Issue 2 of Super Team Family. This cover with Creeper and Wildcat was originally prepared to be the full cover image,
Mm-hmm.
rather than just this sort of collage with B&B 79. I've sourced the original cover art. I will share it on the socials this week, so watch out for it.
Wow. Fantastic.
The stories we're covering just now, listeners, are obviously sort of contemporaneous with DC publishing The Amazing World of DC Comics.
Mm-hmm.
If you have your copy of issue 6 to hand, listeners, and go to page 38, you will see that amongst the blurb about Batman Family sort of starting, there are a couple of paragraphs, and I'm just going to read this out for you now. The other 50 center, meaning 50 cent as a giant book, not the American rapper person that you get nowadays. The other 50 center is Super Team Family, which has an unlimited horizon. It'll feature new and old stories featuring teamed heroes, a la Brave and the Bold, and groups like the JLA, but naturally avoiding material too similar to either of the above-named mags. Got that? The first issue is all reprint, unfortunately, because deadlines were too tight to permit any new material to be prepared. So you could have just waited, really? Launched it a bit later? I don't know. But coming up will be The Metal Men by Steve Gerber and Ramona Fradon, and Creeper and Wildcat, written by Denny O'Neil. Both of these jobs were originally for first issue special.
Oh.
But editor Jerry Conway decided they would fit better here, as here they mean in Super Team Family. As of issue 4, the mag will get a regular writer, Aquaman's own Paul Levitz, who coincidentally is Jerry's assistant, and so will be picking most of the reprints for the back of the mag. The first issue's out in July. And, oh, what's this underneath? Codename Assassin is a little more than a concept right now, but you can watch out for more details of this new Conway-edited Skeet scripted mag next issue. After all, it won't be out until October. And much the same is true of Starman, a cosmic comic coming from Conway, who'll be writing and editing this one in October. And after that, it says, and last but not least, October will see the release of the group you've all been clamouring for, the Freedom Fighters. A collection of the old Quality Comics group characters, Uncle Sam the Ray, Black Condor, Dollman, Human Bomb, and Phantom Lady. Scripts and editing by Jerry Conway, who was obviously very busy. So there you go, Petesy.
Wow.
This story was originally going to be in an issue of first issue special.
Amazing.
The Creeper and Wildcat, like, obviously, we've done a few episodes on first issue special. We'll have a couple of episodes still to go on first issue special. I find it hard to reconcile the sort of showcase approach with the idea of having a team-up between two established heroes.
Yeah, it's strange, especially considering we had a one-off Creeper story in first issue special.
Exactly.
So was this supposed to be instead of that issue? Was this supposed to be as well as that? Were they going to do a solo Wildcat one as well afterwards, and this was a bridge between them? Who knows?
It's fascinating. And also, the Metal Men, I mean, I know that the Metal Men were revived in the 70s, but as you know, I'm not a huge Metal Men fan, so I don't know if that story by Steve Gerber and Ramona ever made it to print. So
Gerber certainly did write them in the 70s, but I can't remember all the artists, apart from Walt Simonson offhand,
yeah, of course,
who worked in it. So
yes, listeners, the rest of that page obviously gave us a little insight into what else is going to be coming up on our show. You can probably extrapolate quite easily which ones we're going to be covering, but fascinating to see that they were committed to Super Team Family being old and new when we know that issue 3 has that Hawkman and Flash story, but issue 4 is back to being all reprints. And then very soon afterwards, they give the whole comic to the Challengers of the Unknown. So
yeah,
someone could do a dedicated blog or podcast all about just Super Team Family on its own, but there you go.
certainly could. Perhaps someone is. Who knows?
Not going to be us. Right, so after all that preamble, the Creeper and Wildcat now. Obviously on the show we've covered all of Wildcat's appearances in Brave and Bold and his turns with the Justice Society, and we've debated back and forth. Is there an Earth 1 Wildcat? Is there not? You know, how does this all fit into the timeline of Wildcat and the Justice Society and Batman and such things? And Peter and I are very firmly in the case of there is an Earth 1 Wildcat, aren't we? Mm-hmm. And the Creeper, who first appeared in issue 73 of Showcase in 1968, on sale in January 68, according to Mike's, that priceless resource. The Creeper, we can pretty much say is an Earth 1 character because he appeared alongside the Justice League of America. Issue 70, to be precise.
And it's teamed up with Batman several times.
And what's really interesting is that the Creeper was one of the few characters to appear in Showcase to actually get an ongoing series at that point. I've read it, I've got the hardback collection, the Steve Ditko Omnibus.
Yep.
And it's an interesting book because it's sort of serialised in a way that a lot of DC comics weren't at that point.
Yeah, it's kind of like an ongoing soap opera sort of thing. It's really interesting. I've got the first appearance of him in Showcase, and I've got the original 6 issues as well. And they are wonderful. It's mad Steve Ditko artwork on them, and it's a young Denny O'Neil writing.
Yeah.
And it's lots of fun.
It's very good. I mean, I read them all through a couple of years ago. Would encourage listeners to check these stories out if you ever get the chance. I will be posting a Creeper cover gallery on our socials at some point this week because he It's had a very long and varied history. So, Peter, can you remember when you first encountered the Creeper?
I think it was the Alan Brennert written Brave and Bold story with the up against the origami monster.
Right. I'm pretty sure the first time I encountered him, and I think I said this before when we did our Human Target portmanteau episode, I'm pretty sure it was Brave and the Bold number 143. And I think I probably said this in our Road to First Issue special episode of the week. He's such a memorable character, isn't he?
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
There's something very unsettling and unearthly about him, and he lodged in my mind as a kid, despite the fact I'm pretty sure I maybe only saw him in another one or two comics max, which I can't remember at this distance. I remember when he turned up in Justice League, I was quite pleased and was kind of disappointed he didn't hang around.
Yeah, he's almost like a cross between the Joker and Kraven the Hunter, as far as looks go.
Yeah, that's fair.
I've always enjoyed him as a character. He's always been very entertaining.
Yeah. There's been a lot of good stuff done with him over the years. There was a really good ongoing series in the 90s. Mm-hmm. I think Vertigo did a kind of retcon where there was another Creeper in France in the early part of the 20th century. I don't remember a mini-series with that, but
yeah, that was good.
I'm not sure what his current status is. I know he turned up in Shazam quite recently. Mm-hmm. It's a long time since he was a regular fixture. It's a shame because it's such a fascinating, interesting character about this journalist who infiltrates a party in a costume, and a scientist who's come up with some new gizmo sort of sticks it under his skin so that he flips back and forth between his regular state of journalist Jack Ryder and this weird creep. This weird costume that he put together to sneak into the Halloween party.
The dancing creep. Mm.
Yeah, it's a fascinating character. Listeners, when did you first encounter the Creeper? You can write in and let us know. Now that all this preamble's out of the way, shall we just get on with the story, Peter?
Let's do so.
So, we open with a very familiar sort of splash panel. Wildcat is in the middle of a boxing ring, and he's being punched in the jaw by a well-built chap with red hair. And along the top it reads, Super Team Family presents Creeper and Wildcat together. And we see a TV camera belonging to Wham Television, and we can see the crowd, a very nice, diverse and mixed crowd, watching this boxing match, and speaking to us, addressing us, is a chap in a very sharp orange suit, a green and black striped shirt, a green tie, an orange hat with a yellow band, very narrow face, dark hair, and he's addressing us, and he says,
Jack Ryder here, fans, with the Wham TV Sports Report. As you can see on your screen, the Wildcat is sparring with Jaffe Shim. Unless you've been hiding in a rainforest somewhere, you'll know that Shim is the heavyweight contender. As for the Wildcat, well, it's a weird story.
And Jack Ryder is interrupted by a caption which reads,
And it'll get weirder, Jack, because before the drama draws to a conclusion, there will be an unlikely super team battling an even unlikelier foe in the unlikeliest of settings.
And we then see, written on the side of the ring, the name of this story. And the name of this story is Showdown in San Lorenzo. We then get the credits for this issue.
Story by Denny O'Neil, the Creeper's old biographer. Art by Rick Estrada and Bill Drought, The Wildcat's Choice. Edited by Jerry Conway. It was his idea.
Well done, Jerry. Thanks. Top of page 2, we're back with Jack Ryder, who's commentating.
The Wildcat agreed to bounce his chin off Shim's gloves to drum up interest in Jaffe's forthcoming bout with Franco Turley. That fracas is scheduled to be held Thursday in San Lorenzo.
Another view of the boxing ring with a whap. Wildcat gets struck in the face by Shim as Jack continues.
The money moguls behind San Lorenzo hope to put their so-called island paradise on the map, or at least the tourist map. Jaffe Shim hopes for a shot at the championship, and Wildcat hopes... Well, let's ask the ferocious feline what his game is. Mind saying a few words to the set-side set, Cat?
Wildcat leans down towards Jack and replies, Listen, Jack, at this point I'll do anything to avoid Jaffe's leather. The kid's got the moves of a young Ali, and the neatest left hook I've ever seen, or felt.
So, why are you taking it?
Well, the thing is, Jack, half the proceeds from the fight go to charity, the Vietnam orphans. I figure those tags deserve any break they can get. If a few bruises on my hide can help, heck, it's the least I can do. Wildcat's musings are interrupted, as flying in from Jack's right we see a red canister which seems to be giving off a green gas. Jack Ryder yells,
Cat, down! A grenade! Heedless of his own possible peril, the Wildcat leaps to thrust Shim out of danger with startling speed.
Wildcat does so, we see Jack reacting. Jack pulls out a handkerchief and covering his mouth and nose because he looks at the canister and indeed sees the smoke curling out of it as he thinks,
Gas! As sure as sin there'll be a herd of baddies following it, which is my cue to exit. and to do my patented quick change number.
I love the transformation effect for the Creeper. Jack basically, well, a caption tells us.
Jack Ryder touches a tiny device attached to his wristwatch. The air shimmers, colours and shapes alter, and an instant later the Creeper springs forth.
Yes, we'll put these couple of panels of the transformation on the socials, listeners, of course, so you can see, but it's a great effect because the sort of red of the Creeper's weird cape shawl type thing flares up behind the silhouette of Jack in his suit. It's very, very effective. The new arrival, the Creeper, is thinking,
as I thought, here come the heavies. Time to lay on the laugh. And while I'm at it, I'll dish out some dialogue. Fools! Dare you challenge me?
And the Creeper strikes at two new arrivals. There's one guy we can see in a brown suit wearing a purple gas mask, and another guy, balding guy, dark hair, what's left of it, wearing a white shirt. He's got a pistol pulled. He's also wearing a purple gas mask. The Creeper starts firing punches, sending the guy in a brown suit flying backwards.
Cheap thugs are getting cheaper. Grandma could have handled this pair.
He thinks. He's grabbed a couple of other guys. Amusingly, he seems to have grabbed them by the nose, and he slams their heads together. They do not look as if they're having a good time. Off camera, appropriately, the Wham TV cameraman can be heard yelling, "Creeper, don't bother with the small fry. The boss is there. Proteus!" He points beyond the Creeper, who looks back into the ring and sees Wildcat in the process of punching out the goon that we saw a second ago with a white shirt. And this prompt from the cameraman leads the Creeper to think,
Proteus, huh? My oldest foe. I was wondering when he'd pop up again.
And a footnote reads,
Old-timers will remember Proteus from the Creeper's own late-lamented mag, Jerry.
That was a very Roy Thomas-style caption, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yes.
There's a bit more captioning.
The Creeper blinks, peers through the swirling fumes, and recognises his enemy. But the others in the gym see the Wildcat.
This is a very interesting panel. We sort of get two different points of view side by side with each other. We see the Creeper looking up into the ring, and he sees the white-skinned, featureless form of Proteus. But then there's a sort of jagged separation between the panels, and we see Wildcat, with still his boxing gloves, still taking on the goons. Creeper leaps up into the ring, saying,
We are fated to have another clash, Proteus. As always, I shall triumph!
And the Creeper tackles Wildcat. Now, meanwhile, outside the ring, a couple of the punters, a couple of the crowd, one of them says, What the devil? Why is the Creeper chasing the Wildcat? Another chap beside him notices,
Can you see them bozos are grabbing Shim?
Yes, indeed, and the two guys who Creeper tackled with on the previous page are walking up the stairs, and the brown suit guy has Shim over his shoulder. We're back in the ring at the top of page 5 with Wildcat and the Creeper as Wildcat says, Hey, you gone nuts? I'm a good guy. As Creeper just batters him with punches. The Creeper says,
No blacker villain never walked the earth, Proteus!
And he thinks to himself,
Brother, my scare talk is really getting ripe.
You young punk heroes, you don't know your ear from your elbow. A blind man could see I'm no, who's this, Proteus. Okay, you want a duke? I'll duke, says Wildcat, punching Creeper backwards with a wham. The Creeper, lying on the ground, thinks,
Proteus can hit. He must have been studying kung fu or something. I'd better give myself room.
Tries to manoeuvre out the way as Wildcat is saying, I'd ever dodged a scrap, and just 'cause I got a few years, I'm not about to start. Ugh! And he cuts himself off because lying on the ground, the Creeper is kicked up, sending him flying backwards. Creeper thinks,
Bullseye! A 2-foot special!
Next panel, both heroes are back on their feet. We can still see this is being filmed by the Wham TV cameras as Wildcat raises his fists and his gloves and says, A crummy trick. That's all you youngsters are good for. Creeper thinks,
He is babbling. No matter, a handful of knuckles will quiet him.
And as Creeper tries to punch at Wildcat, Wildcat brings up his left glove and blocks it, saying, Ha! You ain't so slick at honest punching, are you? Creeper thinks,
Proteus has never fought this skillfully. No, I'm not slick, but I am agile and cunning,
says the Creeper, who launches himself into the air. Vaulting over Wildcat, he grabs him round the neck, twists round, somersaults round, so that they're both at the edge of the ring, and as he rights himself, Creeper hurls Wildcat so that he goes flying out into the crowd. Oh my goodness. Quickly, Wildcat bounces back into the ring, saying, Okay, if the fancy dance stuff is done, you mind plain fighting?
Incredible! He's like a tank, he keeps coming!
The Wham TV cameraman steps forward, saying, What's the matter with you birds? Stand aside, Sonny. Let me at him.
You've altered your style, Proteus. Once you would have fled.
You both crazy? Why does Wildcat put the hurt on Creeper and vice versa? We then get a sort of close-up of Creeper's point of view as he looks at Wildcat and says,
Wildcat? Not Proteus?
And his view seems to shimmer between Wildcat and the blank-faced fiend. Creeper rubs his eyes as Wildcat says, Junior, you need specs. Real powerful ones. And then Creeper in the next panel points at the Wham TV cameraman, saying,
But you told me he's Proteus.
Not me, fella. When the swinging started, I hid.
Then it was Proteus himself disguised as you. But why did I believe him?
'Cause you maybe ain't long on smarts?
No, the gas. Proteus is a new trick. A gas that causes hallucinations. A logical extension of his obsession with masquerade.
Creeper rubbing his head thoughtfully there, as Wildcat says, Kiddo, you can fry those $12 words and eat 'em for breakfast. The important thing is, while we were trading blows, that mob got away with Jaffy Shim.
Obviously, we have an obligation to return Shim.
We? Sure. I'm going to get him back, but you just get in the way.
I'll try not to.
Next panel we see that they're leaving the gym, walking in different directions as Wildcat says, Maybe I could use an errand boy. We start in San Lorenzo. Figures to be where the snatch mob is from.
Meet you there,
says the Creeper walking off, and we can see the Wham TV lad loading all of his gear back into his van. As Wildcat walks away, he looks back at the Creeper and thinks, Heck, he don't seem like a bad kid, if you don't count the sissy costume. He can learn from me. And Creeper, in turn, looks back over his shoulder at Wildcat and thinks,
The old duffer might not exactly be a has-been, but he's close. I admire his guts, though, and I should be able to cover his goofs.
There's a slow dissolve.
So, the following morning, aboard a Caribbean cruise ship bound for San Lorenzo...
Yes, nice aerial shot of a cruise ship. And we track in a little bit closer, as another caption reads,
Jack Ryder and former heavyweight champ Ted Grant meet their respective admirers.
This feels very 70s. It feels like we've wandered into an episode of The Love Boat or something, doesn't it?
Love, exciting and new.
If this was Power of Three, Kenny would be playing us out with the Love Boat theme at this point, and he'd just be jumping in with his needle scratch. But so we see, on the deck of this Caribbean cruise ship, a few bikini-clad lovelies enjoying the weather, some seagulls and stuff flying overhead, and Ted Grant is standing talking to a short, overweight man in a blue shirt and red shorts, and we can see that Jack Ryder, now in a green short-sleeved shirt, sat at table talking to another couple of delectables in their bathing suits, and the chap talking to Wildcat, or Ted Grant I should say, is saying,
I seen you battle in Cleveland in '54, Teddy baby. You were poetry in motion.
And one of Jack's admirers is staring deep into his eyes and saying, We adore your newscasts, Mr. Ryder. And the chap in the blue shirt continues,
Here to sign my book. For my grandson, you understand.
And we see a very neutral expression, Ted Grant signing the autograph, thinking, He'd crow if he knew he was getting the Wildcats John Hancock too. Proceedings are then interrupted. We see a TV screen near the pool with a uniformed man with a thick black moustache and dark shades and a peaked uniform cap, sort of brown military uniform with big stars on his shoulders, bursting into view in the screen and saying, Attention, citizens of San Lorenzo. This is General Pedro Lobo, and I speak to you regarding prizefighter Jaffy Shim. Hearing this, Jack Ryder perks up and says,
Lobo, he's the guy who lost the last election in San Lorenzo.
General Lobo continues, Unless I am returned to power immediately, the American will remain my captive. Or worse. And we see beside him, looking very much worse for wear, is Jaffy Shim. Ted Grant exclaims, Brother, that is nasty. And Jack says,
The San Lorenzans have sunk their whole treasury into promoting the fight.
Yeah, this match don't go. They'll be flattering a hobo's billfold. And on everybody's crud list besides. What I think Wildcat meant there was... There's a quick, slow dissolve.
At that moment, in a secluded cabin in San Lorenzo...
And we see General Lobo standing with his hands on his hips, and he says to his captive, Enjoy my performance, Mr. Shim.
Like the measles I did. Who are you?
And then we see, grotesquely, General Lobo manipulating his face. The moustache and ruddy complexion vanish to be revealed by a horrible, white, featureless face, as he says, I am called Proteus, a creature of individual talent. A sad accident left me with an unusual face and no identity. Therefore, I adopt other identities for a profit. In the present case, a large profit. You can see now that his skin is completely white. He has no discernible eyes or mouth. Still wearing General Lobo's uniform, he starts to take the jacket off, saying, I'm grateful to you, Mr. Shim, My employers are paying me a nice round million in Swiss francs for my activities with you. You can carry my gratitude with you to the grave.
An hour later, the vessel docks, and among the disembarking throng, Ted Grant and a very excited Jack Ryder.
Yeah, Jack and Ted are at the front of the people disembarking. Ted wearing a nice blue suit, Jack in his customary orange suit. And as he's marching off, Jack's looking around and he thinks,
I'm allowed one lucky break per caper, and this is it.
For he has sighted a man wearing a yellow shirt with sort of orange coral flowery patterns on it. And this man has thinning dark hair, he's smoking a cigarette and reading a newspaper. And Jack looks a bit more closely and thinks,
I recognise the dude lounging by the palm tree. He was wearing a gas mask in the gym when the Creeper KO'd him.
Yes, for obviously this was the guy who was wearing the white suit and the gas mask, the balding guy that we noticed earlier on. He sat reading a newspaper. Jack keeps an eye on him, and then Jack thinks,
I'll stick to him like a second skin. Or the Creeper will, and hope he'll lead me to the jackpot.
And with that, Jack ducks into a handy alleyway, and take a drink, listeners, for there is a dustbin, as he transforms into the Creeper, and then leaps up to the rooftops and starts following the man in the flowery shirt who is walking off.
Meanwhile, in the presidential palace...
Yes, we see Ted Grant in his civvies has been led in to meet a very official-looking man in a blue suit with a big red sash, some military people standing around. Get a closer look at this fellow. He's got dark hair, he's wearing glasses, and he announces himself to Ted, saying,
Senor Grant, I am President Borges, and I welcome you to my country.
Howdy, pal.
But I fear your journey was for nothing. The boxing match will not occur, for Senor Shim will be absent.
Check, and the orphans will suffer. Only, I got an idea. How's about I persuade my chum Wildcat to stand in for Shim? Think that'd sell tickets?
Yes, I suppose so.
And we maddeningly, just to annoy me, cut to an external shot of the building where this conversation is taking place, as Ted replies, It's settled. I guarantee the Wildcat, provided Shim doesn't show. And we're privy to Ted's thoughts as he now arrives at the Hotel Caribe, as he muses to himself, which isn't the toughest task in the world, seeing as how I am the Wildcat. Now the kid, the creepy, is supposed to deliver a progress report. And as he concludes his thoughts, we see Ted taking off his civvies, revealing his Wildcat uniform underneath. We are continued on the third page following. We pass a couple of adverts for DC tabloids before we arrive at the top of page 12, and a caption reads,
And...
we see Wildcat lying flat on his front on a rooftop, thinking, This is the spot we agreed on, the hotel roof, except the creepy ain't here. I might have known. The kids of today just ain't dependable.
However, the Wildcat's judgment might not be so harsh were he half a mile distant, where...
Yeah, we're back with the Creeper who's still creeping around the rooftops, following the man in the flowery shirt.
My pigeon's getting into the elevator, heading to the top of that half-finished building. I've walked this far, may as well ride the rest of the way.
Yes, and we see flowery shirt man walking into a very ramshackle-looking lift that's outside of this construction site. The Creeper runs forward and grabs hold of the bottom of the lift as it raises up. It rises at the top. Flowery shirt man stepping out onto the platform is greeted by a man in a brown suit who calls to him, Everything okay?
Yep, the boss and Jake have already left with Shim. The guy paying the bill said Shim should be snuffed.
And this prompts the Creeper into action. He jumps forward saying,
Speak! Name the place Proteus has gone to! Speak, or risk the wrath of the Creeper!
And he thinks,
chances are at least one of them will go for a piece.
And indeed the brown suit one does, and he pulls a pistol. Creeper jumps forward thinking,
Right on, I love cheap crooks. They're so predictable.
With a punch, Creeper takes out the man in the brown suit. As flowery shirt guy steps forward, Creeper thinks,
His buddy there thinks I'm too busy with the bashing to see him grab that hunk of pipe. I'll let loose the laugh, which will shake him, and buy me the second I need to zap him.
And Creeper dazzlingly flips forward and kicks back with his right foot, which sends flowery shirt guy flying. It's not clear if he fell off the platform to his death, or maybe just went flying and is unconscious. Let's hope he fell to his death, quite frankly, because that shirt is a crime against humanity.
Take that back.
You would wear that shirt. I know you would.
Yes, I know, without a doubt.
Anyway. Maybe you could cosplay as this character for the socials this week.
I need to shave my head.
Do some skillful combing. Probably cool. Right, anyway. Creeper then looks over to his left as one of the other goons, a blonde chap in a white shirt and blue trousers, starts to run off through the construction site. Creeper thinks,
Number 3 is acting as per usual, also running like the devil. too spooked to realise he's not heading for the elevator, but for a dead end.
And indeed, we see he's running out along a big metal beam, which isn't connected to anything else. Creeper follows him, yelling,
"Again, I demand! Where is Proteus?"
He marches towards the goon, standing out in the absolute end of the girder. The goon starts to panic, saying, I can't swim, I can't snitch. Proteus would kill me.
Do you have reason to believe I won't?
At this point, the poor chap sits down, clutching both fists up to his mouth. He says, they're on top of the new sports area. In the third round, Proteus is going to drop him to the ring. A fall of nearly 200 feet. And then we cut to a view of the new, I'm guessing it's actually supposed to be a sports arena. A very high angle. We might even be 200 feet up. Looking down, we can see the boxing ring in the middle. And we hear the master of ceremonies, the referee, announcing,
"Ladies and gentlemen, senors and senoritas, your attention please. We regret to announce Jaffe Shim will not appear tonight. Instead, Franco Turley's opponent will be the renowned crime fighter from America, the Wildcat."
And we see Wildcat raising both of his gloves, posing for the crowd as he says, "Howdy, folks. Top of page 15.
Round 1.
And the bell is rung."
Bong.
Peter is available, listeners, to provide sound effects for your own podcast.
I am onomatopoeia man.
Reasonable rates on request, no time wasters, please. The boxing match begins. Punches and blows are exchanged, and Wildcat thinks he's got a great left jab, and his right cross ain't bad either, as he takes a whap to the stomach. Gets a close-up in the next panel, as he takes a punch to the chin as he thinks, I'm hoping that bum Proteus is looking, and he somehow tips me off to who he is. But looks like I'll have plenty of trouble staying standing, much less chasing hoods.
However, Proteus is watching.
And we're back, high above the ring. There's a maintenance gallery. You can see lights and all sorts of stuff. And Proteus, wearing purple trousers and not much else, with a weird sort of red trident motif on his chest, which I don't remember from the Creeper series. I'm not sure if that was a thing or not at that point.
Nope.
And he's standing there with Shim tied up in front of him and one of his other goons pointing a gun at Shim. And Proteus is saying, enjoy the bout, Jaffe. While you live, you'll soon join the combatants.
Round 2.
And the bell rings once again.
Bong.
Tell you, listeners, that's quality sound effects there. We see Turley laying some more punches on Ted as Ted thinks, I'm smart and strong for a guy my age. Can't beat a young comer though. I'm getting pounded. Have to pull a trick Ali pulled against Foreman. Lay back on the ropes. Hope he'll tire. As for Proteus, I couldn't nail him if he came gift-wrapped. And through all this, Wildcat's taking various blows to the body and the face. There's one great shot of him being struck on the nose and the chin simultaneously, and his whole face seems to contort and stars fly. His thoughts continue through all of this. I'll be lucky to get out of this without broken bones. Blast Creepy, the punk, he ought to be helping.
He is,
reads a caption as we see, hanging from a gallery above the one that Proteus is on, the Creeper, and he yells down to his foe,
Release him, Proteus!
The Creeper. Shoot him, says Proteus to his goon, who brings his gun up to bear on the Creeper.
Bong! As the bell sounds for the third round, a startled, frightened gunman fires a hail of bullets.
He yells a great brat-a-tat-a-tat as he fires his machine gun at the Creeper, who's jumping down towards him, and the Creeper says, You miss! I don't! And with a pow! He punches out the goon. In the same moment, Ugh! Exclaims Wildcat as Franco Turley strikes him square in the chin with a right-hander. We're back up with Proteus and Shim, as Proteus is saying, You'll capture me, Creeper, but I will not fail, for Shim dies. And he shoves the tied-up boxer from the gantry. He plummets down towards the ring.
All eyes are on the ring, all save 2.
Yes, because Wildcat's flat on his back after that last blow from Franco. And as the referee starts to count, we can see Wildcat is looking up above him, and he thinks, Somebody's fallen. Wildcat gets to his feet, thinking, Gotta reach him, as we see Shim plummeting into view. There's a violent ah from Ted, as he manages to catch Shim just in time. Shim's weight knocks him to the floor as a violent concussive burst.
15 minutes later,
Wildcat is still on his back. He's being attended to by a doctor. Shim has had his ropes untied. He's standing up. A couple of photographers. The referee's still there. And the doctor is saying,
Amazing. Although 4 of his ribs are fractured, he will recover excellently.
At this precise moment, we see President Borges walking up the steps at the side of the ring. He starts to clamber through the ropes, saying,
Thank you, Doctor. As President, I deeply regret.
But he's interrupted by a voice off camera crying,
Bull!
The Creeper arrives and points accusingly at the President, saying,
You paid to have him murdered! A clever scheme to shift the blame to your rival, Lobo. You hope to consolidate your power and ensure winning the next election.
The President looks appalled and he yells,
Lies!
But the Creeper replies,
No! Your hired killers revealed everything!
The President rushes towards the Creeper, yelling,
Meddler!
But the Creeper isn't fussed. A casual backhand and a slap sends the President flying and his glasses off as the Creeper says,
You are weak! A weak president and a weak man.
We've seen in the background Wildcat has managed to get to his feet. He steps forward, puts a hand round the Creeper's shoulder and says, Kid, I misjudged you. You got real nice moves. And the Creeper smiles as we reach the end and a caption says,
Next issue, The Flash and Hawkman.
Well then, let's get the first thing out of the way.
Yes.
The Creeper, as we said at the top, interacted with the Just League of America and, as you said, met Batman a few times at this point in Brave and Bold and Detective. And here he is, an established then Earth 1 character interacting with Wildcat, which I think finally puts the nail on it that there was a Wildcat on Earth 1.
Yes.
There is no way of arguing against it after this story.
Yep, there's no mention of Ted vacationing on Earth 1, having a wee break from Earth 2. It's definitely an Earth 1 version. All these people that say, all the Wildcat stories in Brave and Bold, that's Earth B, Earth Boltonov, or Earth Bob Haney. Nonsense. It's all Earth 1, and it can all be easily reconciled.
Absolutely. There is no arguing with it. As Pete says, I've never been a fan of the Earth B theory. You know, it's if you actually read all the stories and follow their own sort of logic, it makes sense that there is an Earth 1 Wildcat.
Yeah.
The thing I wanted to say very quickly is Wildcat's mention of Muhammad Ali
Yes!
is interesting. Because in the future we'll be covering the Superman Muhammad Ali tabloid. And again, I will repeat my appeal for any information that anyone might have about who replaces Jimmy Carter on the cover of a couple of European editions, so we can tell our pal Alec. Quite an abrupt ending there.
Very abrupt. It's 18 pages, which seems like kind of an unusual amount.
Quite a lot of the stories at this point are 18 pages, though. I think Dr. Fate and The Last Sandman we did were the same, and I think next week's is the same, so there's maybe a bit of a crunch, and they haven't maybe acclimatised to it yet.
I suppose. Yeah, I suppose it depends what they're reprinting as well. But it's really interesting. It reads very much like a Brave and Bold story.
Yes.
But I couldn't tell you which one the guest star is.
That's a really good point, because it does feel like equal billing, and as we said at the top, this was planned for an issue of first issue special, and the mind boggles, as you said, was this supposed to be a regular team?
Yeah.
It's fascinating to sort of comprehend.
It's very, not mismatched, but it's an odd pairing, a very odd pairing. Whoever thought of this initially? Obviously, if it was Jerry Conway, good on you, Jerry, because it was a very entertaining story.
Yeah.
But it's really peculiar. I like the fact that Wildcat just refers to the Creeper as kid all the time, even although, he's a proper adult reporter and he doesn't know it because he's only seen him as the Creeper. So, yeah, it's hilarious.
Yeah, I don't think there's any point where Wildcat realises that Jack Ryder, the reporter that he was talking to at the start, and the Creeper are the same person.
No.
It would have been nice if there'd been room to maybe play that up a little bit more. I want to go back to what you said. It really does feel like a Brave and the Bold story. It feels very reminiscent of a lot of the B&B stories we've been doing,
Yeah.
Because, for a start, it's not set in Gotham City, and it seems to be set in some other loosely foreign country.
Yes, vaguely Hispanic,
yes.
Sort of locale.
Which is quite amusing. I'm glad we didn't get a chase through a desert.
Although there wasn't any motorcycle action on a beach, unlike the image in the cover.
Yes.
Which is very peculiar.
Yeah, I was going to comment on that, obviously. Not even a Defenders 39 situation, where it's vaguely like, the cover's vaguely like what happens. Apart from that one sort of tussle at the start when the Creeper's been gassed, they're pretty much on the same side for most of it.
Yeah, Yeah, Wildcat does take a pummeling in this story.
Yes.
From both the Creeper and from Franco.
Yeah.
From Jaffe as well. So he's just a punching bag throughout.
Yes. Did Ted use one of his 9 lives in this story? Discuss.
I think in our prep for this, you remarked upon how much the artwork in this reminded you of Steve Ditko.
I did. You're correct. Yes, I did think so. And it wasn't really until we sat down and did the prep that I realised that it wasn't drawn by Steve Ditko. Because the art in the story is very... I don't want to say it's Ditko-esque, but it certainly seems like Rick Estrada is at least complementing Ditko's style.
It's structured like a Ditko story. I do think some of the panels and angles and things look quite Ditko-y as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the fight scene where Creeper's fighting Wildcat in the boxing ring, those 4 panels where Creeper leaps over him, grabs him, then flips him into the empty seats,
Sure.
is very Ditko-esque. That looks like it could be straight out of Spider-Man, actually, an early Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
So there are definitely similarities and parallels. Obviously, Rick's been taking some cues from the original Creeper series, so yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's interesting, as we said, the Creeper did appear in an first issue special, and Pete found a story of Creeper Jackson to make mention of, of a slight sort of precedent. But listeners, I recommend the Creeper with Steve Ditko collection if it's still available, if you can track one down, because not only does it reprint the original Steve Ditko series, it reprints the first issue special story, it reprints a few stories from World's Finest Comics.
Oh, right, okay.
And it also has a story that was planned for issue 106 of Showcase, featuring the Creeper, which wasn't published but made it to Cancelled Comics Cavalcade. Really interesting to think that they did seem to be trying to make the Creeper happen.
Yeah, I mean, he is a great character.
He is.
There's a great issue of the Joker where he appears as well, around about this time.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, someone who's trying to get the Creeper is trying to frame him for something. The Joker commits a crime, and the guy that's trying to frame the Creeper basically says, all I saw was green hair and heard a laugh, so it must be the Creeper.
Ah.
Put an APB out on the Creeper. So yeah, that was a fun story.
Right, another one you mean.
The Joker obviously takes offence to this.
Of course. I think I've said this before, maybe not on the show, but I know I've said it to you. I had practically a full set of that Joker series, and I got rid of it, and I'm just like, why?
Yeah.
I've got the trade paperback collection now, which is fine, but it's like, the only one I kept was the bicentennial one, and I'm just sort of like, I berate myself constantly. I had issue 1 and everything, because it's not a cheap series to pick up anymore.
Not anymore. Yeah. No, I love that series. Yeah, it's good. I've got it all, yeah.
The amount of stuff I got rid of in the 2000s just appalls me now, especially considering that I've bought so much of it again. like the Challengers and Dial H for Hero. But anyway, That's quite a bit of chat about the Creeper. It's a fairly bog-standard Wildcat story in a way, isn't it?
Yeah.
It feels very familiar to some of the other stories that we've read with him.
I mean, there's boxing as the main
Yeah.
focus of it. I always wondered how no one looked at Ted Grant and looked at Wildcat and thought they have the exact same fighting styles.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting to see Wildcat doing the charity match thing with the gloves over his costume and stuff at the start. That's quite fun. I mean, it definitely feels coherent and a continuation of every other Wildcat story that we've done, even the one... Yeah. The ones in Brave and the Bold, even the one in the Spectre, that was the main part of the confusions that they're crossing about and stuff, the crossover.
Yeah.
I think there's only one other Earthworm Wildcat story still to do, and we'll get to that actually fairly soon, I think.
I did like the aspect of raising money for Vietnam orphans as well, so another contemporary reference as well as the Muhammad Ali story.
Very much so.
That was fascinating. It's very Denny O'Neil kind of, let's get a bit of current political situation into an action-adventure story. That was fascinating.
That's an excellent point, definitely. That feels very Hard Travelling Heroes as a reference, doesn't it?
Yeah. Is this the new Hard Travelling Heroes, Creeper and Wildcat?
Gosh, I mean, I'm trying to imagine... I can understand them doing a Metal Men story in first issue special because,
sure.
Metamorpho and Creeper were also in it. They were pre-existing characters. They were, trying them again. Dr. Fate, a pre-existing character, giving them a shot and seeing if there's enough interest. But were they trying to sell them as a new team, or was first issue special going to evolve into a rotating sort of team-up character comic? Maybe that's what gave them the idea for this, to do Super Team Family then, which is because we get this... Yeah. We get this story with Flash and Hawkman, and then further down the line there's all the stories with Green Lantern and Flash and Supergirl and the Atom and all that, and Aquaman tying into Secret Society. So there's a lot... I maybe have to do some more digging into Amazing World of DC Comics and see if there's any more information about such things.
Interesting. Speaking of digging into more information, shall we leap to the letters page that covers this issue?
I think that's an excellent idea. I've been really, really looking forward to this letters page.
So, folks, it's Super Team Family issue 4. I hope you all have it, because it's a classic. It reprints The Revenge of Solomon Grundy, Justice Society story, as well as Superman, Batman and Robin and The Menace of the Moon Man, which is another fantastically fun story. But yes, if you flick to the very back of that issue, Team Talk is the title of the letters column. And the first letter says, Dear Mr. Conway, the Creeper Wildcat story in Super Team Family 2 was very good, because two such different characters are not usually found fighting evil side by side. They made for a uniquely different team. However, isn't Wildcat a JSA member? What's he doing on Earth 1? Or are there 2 Wildcats, 1 per Earth, as there are 2 Flashes and 2 Green Lanterns? Also, the generation gap feud between our heroes wasn't necessary. In fact, the Creeper is not a young kid, as Wildcat thinks he is. The last panel of the story showed the Creeper looking more like a teen titan than a macabre manhunter, though. And that's from Michael D. Dargay from Royal Oak, Missouri, Mississippi, MI. Steve Higgins, let us know.
Steve will tell us. Steve will be on it. I woke up, some of our listeners, I went onto Facebook and I shared the latest Road to First Issue special episode we did, because I wanted to see if anyone I know could guess whose voice I was trying to copy for Minuteman. And Steve commented on it almost immediately, saying that he hadn't got to that part of the episode yet. That must have been like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So I replied saying, what the are you still doing up?
Mm-hmm.
And he said he was prepping stuff for work, but it's like, Steve, man, go to your bed at a reasonable hour. Honestly.
Oh, well.
It will take its toll on you one day, I'm telling you. Anyway, that's enough of a lecture. It's not why Steve listens to the show or takes part in the show.
True.
Anyway, the editorial response goes like this. In the Wildcat origin, Ted Grant got the idea to become a costumed hero from a Green Lantern comic. This would seem to place that story on Earth 1, where the Earth 2 heroes were comic characters. And since that took place in the early 40s, Wildcat would be old enough to think of a hero who started in the 60s as a kid. And that's from E. Nelson Bridwell. Carefully dodging the aspect of the question that mentioned that obviously Wildcat was a JSA member.
Uh-huh. But ENB seems to think that Wildcat is purely an Earth 1 character.
Yes.
From his comment there.
You know, taking that into account, and obviously there are a couple more letters still to come,
Mm-hmm.
there is no arguing with the fact that there is a Wildcat in the JSA.
Yes.
Because he even appeared in the last JSA crossover.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a Wildcat, as we've seen it on Earth. Well, there's no 2 ways about it. There are 2.
Yeah.
The next letter goes like this. Dear Mr. Conway, I have been looking forward to Super Team Family number 2 with great anticipation. Having finally read it, I'm afraid it was something of a letdown. Here you have a magazine of limitless potential, and it was misused to the nth degree. Basically, the Creeper Wildcat story was a good one. It was an extremely bizarre choice of teammates. Creeper is growing in popularity, but Wildcat has no feature of his own, and appears only sporadically in Brave and Bold, open brackets, and I guess will appear in All-Star in his original Earth 2 incarnation. Why you chose him is beyond me, but this is unimportant compared to the weakest flaw in the story. Jerry, I was impressed and pleased with the continuity you utilised in Man-Bat, keeping all the facts of his previous appearances unchanged. Continuity is one of DC's biggest faults, and I hoped, with your arrival at DC, you would indeed keep the continuity straight, as this is one of Marvel's strongest policies. But you let me down. Proteus was killed in the Creeper's own book, dead. We even saw the body. And now, entirely without explanation, the Creeper says, I was wondering when he'd pop up again. It astounds me that you and Denny would let this go. It can be rationalised, I suppose. You can say that somehow Proteus survived, after all. Maybe he was only nearly dead when we saw him last, and somehow the Creeper had found out this was the case. But not to include this explanation in the context of the story is almost criminal. The characterisation of Wildcat, Ted Grant, was unusual and interesting. He's been pretty square in his B&B appearances. Ted, as big tough guy, was different enough to warrant note. Choice of reprints was excellent, but it's unfortunate that you, or Carmine, whoever laid out the cover, felt it necessary to go to the split cover route, and then to give the reprint top billing.
True.
You can't see anything in those file card-sized boxes of undetailed art. You need a full cover to make it worthwhile. That's a good point, and that's from J. L. Zilber, Oberlin, Ohio. Hope I've pronounced that properly.
And the editorial response is, I'm inclined to regard some of your criticisms as valid, but I'm not the editor at whom they were aimed. Super Team Family has switched to all reprint and a new editor. In this issue we have The Menace of the Moon Man from World's Finest 98 and Revenge of Solomon Grundy from All-Star 33. And your new editor is E. Nelson Bridwell.
Yeah, that, again, doesn't really answer many of the points, does it? Oh well.
No, very true. Although, let's talk about Proteus coming back from the dead. I mean, he is a shape changer.
Yeah.
Not like the way Plastic Man is, but, he can change his appearance. And he does appear later on in a Justice League story 2-parter, which is a lot of fun and is quite daft as well. But again, it's a case of people in disguise. So it's an interesting character, and more should be done with him because he could infiltrate pretty much anybody. It's like Marvel's the Chameleon.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, do you know who else he's like? He's like Richard Benson, Justice Inc.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Because he's white-faced and can change his appearance as well.
Sure.
But yeah, so it's more like Master of Disguise, like the King, who we've covered recently on the podcast, but this one actually has powers.
Yeah.
When Proteus first appeared in the Creeper, I think he was killed in his first appearance and then came back later on as coming back from the dead. It was all fake. So
Right.
let's just say he's got prior from coming back from the dead, as we would say. He has previous.
That's probably fair, yeah. Interestingly, that ENB's pointed out that the book has gone full reprint at this point.
Yeah.
And that won't last for long either.
No.
There is one final letter.
Dear Editor, well, I was not totally disappointed with Super Team 2. I'd been eager to see what would be made of the Creeper, considering the travesty that appeared in first issue special. I was not let down. For once the character was seen as a positive force for good, though it did seem he was too readily acceptable to the general public. Rick Estrada has the loose-moving style that sets the Creeper off to good advantage. As for the scripting, Denny O'Neil placed too much emphasis on the age difference between their protagonists. There was also the indication that Ted Grant's secret identity is not widely known, when according to Brave and Bold 118, it's common knowledge. Of course, the Joker couldn't swim in that story, so I think I'll defer to the facts given here and forget Bob Haney got up that morning. Finally, Proteus was back without an explanation of how he survived the explosion when last he was seen. I realise most fans don't require such tie-ups. However, there are a few of us who thrive on them, and the uncaring remainder will hardly be up in arms if a few panels of explanatory resurrection are provided. On the whole, it was good, but could easily have been better. Anyway, I hope the Creeper will be seen again shortly, and Wildcat too, but not with each other.
Gosh.
And that's from Rich Hango, Clifton, New Jersey.
No editorial response to that one, listeners, so we'll just invite you to tell us what you think of this story.
Yes, you can email us at theearth2podcast@gmail.com. Make sure you follow us on social media because we're putting up lots of lovely bonus material for this and indeed every episode. David's got something very special lined up for this one.
Mm-hmm.
On Facebook, Instagram and Blue Sky, we're at the Earth 2 Podcast. And on Twitter, we're at podcast_Earth2, and it's the number 2 for all of our socials.
Yep, make sure to check out the socials because we're going to be showing off some of Peter's custom Funkos. I'm going to put up the text pages from issue 2 of Super Team Family because they've got little character profiles and also some details about what else is going on in DC at this point. They're very, very interesting. And one very nice surprise, as well as the usual panels and cover info. So yes, listeners, if you're enjoying the show, please consider going to wherever it is you receive your podcast and leaving us a positive review. That would be lovely. Alternatively, or additionally, you could find your way to our link tree and the way to our coffee page and buy Peter the price of a beverage as he sits in Costa one early Monday morning, editing out all the fluffs and coughs and stuff because I was not really awake when we started recording this one and it's going to take him ages, and there you go. That'd be appreciated. I'm now going to go and boil my head before I have my lunch and record another episode.
Yes, listeners, compare the runtime of this episode to the 3.5 hours it took to record it.
It's only a slight exaggeration, kids.
On that bombshell, I've been Peter.
I've been David. We'll see you soon on
The Earth 2
Podcast.
Podcast!
Transmatter Cube activated. Return coordinates set for Earth Prime.
Ha 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 ha!